All right, how's it going?
Good. Everything's going good on my end. Welcome everyone
Yeah.
tuning in to another exciting installment of the Terrorisk podcast. I'm like so ahead in content. I'm like really
Yeah,
happy.
I know.
I'm really
And this
happy
we weren't
about
even
this.
expecting to record. It was just to keep us occupied so we don't fall asleep.
Yeah, because
Tonight.
that's
probably
always
a
what
shorter
happens.
episode.
No, I knew that's what was gonna happen.
That's
because
true.
I just ate.
Yeah.
I just ate a fuck ton of food. Even if it wasn't even anything heavy. I mean, what did I really eat? Just some chicken.
Yeah, a bunch of carbs.
Yeah.
That's it. The factor, all the potatoes, and then yeah, also the falafels you had.
But I'm under the impression that honestly eating just carbs isn't bad.
Right.
Eating just a lot of protein isn't bad. It's when you mix this shit. Like when you
I know we've mentioned this before. As
Yeah.
wisdom from your father, or things that are true for you, perhaps.
I mean,
Your
it makes
dietary
a
norms.
lot of sense.
Yeah. I think I've said this part before. I find talking about diet kind of boring, to be honest. So I'd rather keep this short. But
Keep it
sorry.
short. No. I mean, usually
I think it varies depending on who you are as a person. I think your family background, your own personal genetics. I think you really need to find the food situation that works for you, because I suspect that there's a constant belief that there's going to be a one-size-fits-all diet, and I just don't think that's probably true. I feel like there's probably people have to find the diet that works for them.
yeah, because
Like, people have no problem saying that when it comes to, like, allergies. No one's trying to convince you that you should eat something you're allergic. Well, maybe, but mostly people aren't trying to convince you to eat things you're allergic to. So it seems perfectly reasonable that some people are going to be fine with some foods, but not others.
yeah, especially because like the human body is such a complex animal.
Yeah.
There's a lot of moving parts and whatnot.
Yeah. Anyway, what have you been up to, or what's up now?
I just watched the 3-Body Problem.
Yeah, how is it? Have you read it? I haven't
I
read
did
or
read it.
watched it.
I never read the books, but I did, like so many others, just read the Wikipedia.
Nice.
So that I don't have to,
Synopsis, yeah.
yeah, so I don't have to read the fucking book.
My little brother read the book, and he liked it a lot, so I have to ask him.
Everyone who I've heard of, like, that has read
Yeah.
the book, they said they liked it. Dune was like that.
Yeah. I'm a Dune fan, as I mentioned before. I haven't seen part 2, surprisingly, even though I was hyped for it ever since I saw part 1. Just
Yeah.
been lazy going out, not having gone out to see it.
I mean, it doesn't seem that exciting to me, to be honest. The whole
2
Dune
has a lot more going on. That latter half of the story has way more action or whatever, and I'm curious about the changes they made. But sorry, go on.
I mean, what I do like is the prospect of a Dune video game. That sounds really cool.
What, another strategy game, which is really the best format for it?
Or like an MMO.
No one who plays MMOs anymore? It's just a dead genre.
Is it?
It's pretty much a dead genre. I mean, you have the Korean, and I think Chinese still play it, but WoW really did kill off the genre in a lot of ways, or maybe just changes in market demands.
I mean, there's like strongholds. Like there's the ridiculous ones like fucking RuneScape.
Eve. Oh yeah, RuneScape.
No,
yeah.
EVE Online is what I was gonna say next. That's the real deal. That's like an actual.
That's a throwback to earlier MMOs. After WoW, so every single MMO that came out, either MMOs in production got retooled, or every single project ended up being a WoW-like.
Yeah, but
where they had like a lot of content for solo play. They had the same UI.
Yeah, but EVE never stopped updating. Like EVE
Yeah.
only looks like a modern game now, and because it's just gone on for so long. But like they keep
Yeah.
adding updates. What I mean, the big sticking point of EVE is how much money goes into it.
Yeah. One of
Like
my
the
roommates played it a lot in the past, and he started playing again recently and then quit and said, I just don't have the time or energy for this anymore. And he said, like, it was just annoying playing so that there's a big Chinese guild, and then it's everyone against the Chinese.
Yeah, there's like there's this whole lore behind it because everything is player driven. So it's
Yeah.
like there's been a lot of like. I mean, you could call it like faux politics, and you could call it like like a virtual like simulated like political strife, but
It's political strife.
This
Most-
shit leaked into like real life and for like a lot of people. You know?
Yeah, that's pretty common. I mean, you spend enough time doing it for sure. I think it's silly to pretend it's anything else.
And also, like, you look at wealth in the game, because the wealth has dollar value in one
Yeah.
way. Like, you can't, I mean, you're not supposed to be able to trade in-game money for real cash. You know,
Well, that's inevitable.
yeah,
in
but
these
people
games,
do
yeah.
that anyway. Yeah, but what you can note is that to buy a certain amount of currency in game, you have to spend a certain amount of actual money. So when you're able to like kind of, it's called pocket watching in like modern Twitter circles. But when you actually look at fucking like how much assets certain clans and guilds have, you're like, this is like millions of like actual US dollars worth of like assets transposed into in-game assets, which is crazy. You know, this is like whole economies based around this.
Yeah, you have enough people. It's kind of like an older promise of video games. I think the desire to have video games you can pick up and play and like just do frankly very individualistic missions at a time really won out. There's a reason why battle royales are so much more prominent than other kinds of shooters or video games.
I guess the thing about Eve is it's all in it's one shared universe. So
Yeah.
so it's like you know each other. If you play long enough, you see the certain people like all the time, or you hear
I
them.
think people's variable amounts of time that they can play is a factor.
Yeah.
Eve, by nature, doesn't allow any casual players, so you have to be spending all your time on it.
But the thing is, like, you know, the people that do spend that, it's like you wonder. I mean, you're not supposed to, by nature of a video game or an online game, know who these people really are. But you got to wonder the type of person that like has been playing to that extent, to such a level where they were able to amass like empires. Like, we're not just talking about in-game empires. Like, these people were able to create like associated websites for like gambling. You know, like casino websites that just purely gamble.
Yeah.
The Eve money, the ISK. You know, so it's like just knowing that, you're like, what the fuck? You know, like, you're like, this kind of economy extends beyond the game, you know?
Yeah.
Also, you look at like the scale, right? There's like scales of deception that extend past the game, because there's like
Yeah.
all these political moves you could do that aren't just within the game, but on a meta level, like where it's like, oh, I could actually like gain your trust as a player for you to let me in on your shit, and then I just completely fuck you over and take everything.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not just your assets, but that's assets of, say, thousands of members of the guild, and you just take it all.
Yeah. It's an interesting dynamic that used to be more prominent when people talked about video games. Like, that felt like a very late teens aughts thing. Same thing with like EverQuest or WoW or.
I do think it's like Eve is the MMO that politicians and like physicists and Ivy League students play. It's
Yeah.
like that. It's that level of like gaming. You know, it's like
And
it's all-
intelligence and.
I mean, it's almost like when you get to that certain level of gaming in Eve, it's like the graphical interface doesn't even fucking matter anymore. It's
Yeah.
you might as well just look at spreadsheets all day.
I mean, that's what they do anyway.
I mean, yeah, it makes sense because, like, I mean, all right, so the typical Eve player, I mean, the high-level Eve player, the typical high-level Eve player, they don't just play one, like, character at a time.
Yeah,
They do
there are a whole bunch of them that are like juggling them and they're leveling up different skills.
multi-boxing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all pretty insane. Eve definitely has the craziest player base economy going on that I've ever seen in any other game. I've never seen
I
anything
agree.
top
I
that.
think it's the right mix of enough people playing, intelligent enough people playing, and people willing to devote enough time and energy into it.
And there's also there's the right amount of sociopathy. Yeah, that's because that's really one of the things that drives gaming. You know,
Yeah.
within such a universe, because like it's going to be boring if everyone just decides let's all work together, just be prosperous, just mine what we want to mine. It's like no, that
it doesn't have much of a PVE though.
exactly, which is why you get instances, which also kind of reflects human nature by default. If you give someone the opportunity to fuck people over and gain easy access to their resources just to like, you know, at their detriment,
Yeah.
people are gonna fucking do it. And
I
that's
mean, especially in this context because it's deliberately by design. It's a PvP game.
I wouldn't say it is deliberately a PvP.
I mean, what's the PvE in it?
there is no E to really battle with PvE.
Then
You're right,
yeah, there's no other way. Then it has to be PvP.
But the thing is, it doesn't have to explicitly be PvP. It's just there by choice.
I feel like this doesn't work for Eve the way it would work for other video
Yeah, because they
games.
give you too many things like missiles and lasers and like crazy.
No, like if you don't have PvE, what's the point of playing? Just to make money mining?
Oh well, in Eve, it's like it's gotten to the point where it's like, yeah, you don't need PvE because people are plenty like there's plenty of people to kill each other.
I mean,
you know?
not only is it not, what I'm getting at is I don't think this necessarily says anything about the mindset of players or people, though I think there's truth to that. Just because there's no point to play unless you're playing PvE. You're getting into it for that reason. No one says I'm playing Eve just for the playing the rest of the game for purely social reasons. The large competitiveness is part of the point.
I think the real because you got to remember when Eve first came out. Eve was a first for a lot of things. I think Eve was the first MMO that was available to just be downloaded on the internet.
I think that is true.
And then
I think
to be
because it came out at the right time for digital download only. But I don't know. There might have been.
It was actually really. Apparently, when it first dropped, like online, there was a lot of things going wrong. There was a lot of hiccups, but they managed to pull it off. And another thing that was big about it was its subscription-based model. Like you sustain your play. It was a free to download game, but to like play to access it, you had to like pay a subscription.
Well, it was subscription based, but yeah, in particular subscription, but also I don't know, just the way they set it up. I vaguely remember that now that you mention it.
But you know, like that eventually became like whatever because within the game of Eve, they created this. There's different like there's different forms of currency or resources. Yeah. There's this one specific resource within Eve called Plex. I forgot, it's like an acronym for something, but basically what you could do is with an obscene amount of in-game money, you could buy Plex, and this Plex can be used to purchase game time, like subscription time. So it's like you could literally play for free if you had
if you're just grinding fucking forever, but
not even grinding, like let's say you had a large enough clan to be able to like feed you they all paid their dues, quote unquote, and you at the top.
The social dynamics enabled by it. It makes
There's
sense.
all sorts of ways to like sustain your game. Like,
Eve seems very interesting to read about. I can't imagine playing it.
I never really played it. I just ended up watching like hour-long documentaries because
it's fast. There's a bunch of things that are fascinating to hear about, talk about, but
yeah,
it's funny with a game where you think the whole point is to play it yourself, but really there's a whole bunch of games that are funner to watch things on than to play. Arguably Dwarf Fortress is like that, where it's funner to read people's experiences or watch videos about it than necessarily to play. Though your mileage may vary. I've enjoyed Dwarf Fortress, but I never could fully get into it.
I guess what sets Eve apart to me is the fact that it's the only MMO game that I would actually pay attention to what other players would be doing.
Right.
Whereas any other MMO, I could not give a fuck unless I was actually playing the game myself.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Whereas Eve,
once again, it seems funner to pay attention to other players than to play yourself.
Exactly. I'm sure, but what really fascinated me about Eve specifically was how close it got to real world implications.
Yeah.
Like within one space battle, you had literal like chuds, stuck in their apartments working their tech jobs. All they had to look forward to in their sad little life was Eve, and all their like years of work just gets crushed in an instant because of like one bad move. And that was like enticing to me because that to me was like real world implications.
Yes.
Now
true.
I'm mentioning that because I could predict in the future where there's going to be a game where it's even worse. Like if you thought Eve was bad, like this new game that came out, it's gonna allow you to like make a living playing in this world, but the consequences are going to be so dire. Like the time it takes to make like a single real world dollar in this game is going to be insane.
Yeah. I guess it's already sort of like that, at least for like the Chinese guys on gold farms.
Yeah, but if it's actually built into the framework of the game and the design, like that would be, first of all, like would that even be legal? Like this game,
it would be because there's no laws against it.
This game would have to be released in like Singapore or like some very neutral place.
I feel like an Asian country is more likely to pass laws against it than here.
All right, so then I would say like,
but maybe not. I don't know.
Like maybe somewhere Eastern European, like Russian, like like a Russian-based server or something. I don't know, but such a game, like I don't know, like the precedent wouldn't be all great. Like a lot of it would be bad. You'd have people literally dedicating their lives just to make a living, especially if the game was slick and entertaining enough to look at.
Yeah,
and it's a no-brainer. Kids are just going to be like, oh.
Well, it's interesting because I don't think kids really play MMOs except maybe RuneScape.
Yeah, it's like most of the hustlers in gaming now are like in like stuff like League of Legends, which already is dying. There's Overwatch, which is dying.
There's Fortnite, which is huge, and
Yeah,
like
Fortnite.
Call of Duty and like those other battle
But
royale things are huge.
interestingly enough, it's almost like the esport genre shifted its focus away from like tournaments and highly competitive like match-based events, and they shifted more to like revenue and streaming.
Yeah, streaming. It's all streaming. It's all these obnoxious streaming personalities.
Even though the competition stuff is way cooler, like if you think about it.
Yeah. There's something to be said here. I don't know what. I don't have a clear I don't have a good spiel or take on this. Maybe I'll come up with one while I'm trying to approach that. Perhaps it's like our Zoomers not used to the same kind of competitive play. They certainly didn't have LAN parties. You'd think they would have more intense competition with it. Well, the rise of streamer as a profession or something many people are doing or trying to do is very interesting. Much has been said about the parasocial nature of watching someone else play a video game.
Yeah.
It's funny because I think that's a very I feel very boomer saying this, but I can understand why it seems weird to just watch someone else play a game as opposed to play it yourself.
Well, all right. So
I remember talking to my dad about this, and he says that sounds so strange. Wouldn't you rather play than watch someone else play?
So the first thing, all right, let's go back in time a little bit and remember that like the most prominent spectator esport activity was in like these competitive matches, like whether it was like League of Legends or fighting games, right? And then that died out really quickly, like when it was like those like LAN matches and shit, broadcasted LAN matches. I think what really killed that was COVID. When COVID happened, a lot of these competitive dudes even like started streaming, and streaming also became its own thing, especially when it was timed with like battle royale games.
Yeah.
Because the thing about battle royale games is like each match isn't like a traditional like one team against another team, one side against another side. It's literally structured in a way where it's like winner take all.
Yeah.
That means in one regular Fortnite game, you could have like one of the top one of the top streamers there with some schmuck, and like every single player could be their own streamer.
Yeah.
So it's like it created a more fertile environment for that kind of like.
Do you think there's some issue with latency that because I know with fighting games they probably kind of solved it for a long while. People didn't want to do online fighting games because they want the instant reaction or like the very low latency. And like StarCraft tournaments and the like in Korea, they're in the same building on presumably a local area network.
Yeah,
local access network.
I think it's like for qualifying matches, like let's say like to make like to make the divisions and stuff, like yeah, they probably do that online just as a filtering process. But like after a high enough level, then you're gonna have to get them all in the same stadium.
People can probably relate more to watching a streamer and them chatting away on voice chat while they're playing. I wonder also if the person is constantly streaming, obviously from their house, they're going to have variable ping. So doing a laid-back, relaxed game stream is probably better with a worse connection than a intensely competitive playing. You can also do it for longer because playing competitively is very intense and very draining. You get exhausted doing it in a way you don't with other games.
So what I noticed about that, like there's like like competitive playing where you're playing in like actual tournaments. I mean that's where like the highest levels of competition go down. But then there's also like streaming, like competitive streaming. Now, competitive streaming is where I would say it's like when you stream a game, you could stream like just you playing The Sims or SimCity or Minecraft. Or you could stream yourself playing like a competitive game, match after match, something like Call of Duty, Warzone.
People doing things like stream sniping. So go ahead.
Or like Fortnite or something.
Yeah.
They could be playing one of those like highly competitive battle royale games. And like if they're streaming and people are watching, they're either going to be winning or losing. And if they're winning a lot, then they're going to be like, holy shit, this fucker's good. I'm watching this dude play and he keeps winning and he just streams every day. Yeah, I'm going to keep watching him, especially if they're fans of the game. So yeah, that's I see it as like kind of like a perfect storm for the way it would end up like the way it is. But I miss like the stadium.
I do
style.
too.
Yeah,
I do too. It's more directed. Frankly, they just keep quiet when they're playing. They're very focused on it. These Boomer Take, these streamers have a very, I find almost pretty much all of them very tedious, but I'm not like actively seeking them out either.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'll watch Let's Plays and I'll watch like after action reports with like strategy games in particular.
Yeah, I mean, really, video games are literally turning into like infinite jest now. Like,
yeah, they really do just keep like auto-generate and just keeping you entertained or stimulated.
Yeah, it's gonna get to a point where you could just buy one game and you could play it over and over and over again. It's gonna be a different experience every time.
I guess you just have gacha game mechanics built into it too.
There you go. I mean, like, by the time Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out, it's gonna be like, yo, that's like gonna be some crazy shit.
I wonder. I'll see how GTA 6 goes.
I mean, first of all, like, Red Dead Redemption 2 shouldn't be taken as any small feat. Like, that game is truly it's still a marvel. It's still like, what the hell? You know, you look at, like, if you were to like break that game down into like the sum of its parts, which is like the code and the different assets involved and the moving parts and the in-game economy, it's like so it's so detailed where it's like it's detailed in places where they didn't really have to do that. It was like so detailed where there was moving parts in places where nobody would ever notice unless you actually looked at the code. You were like, there's no reason to do this, and yet they did it. It's like they're trying to do like a Westworld kind of thing with not just like Red Dead, but like with the way they make games, you know, which is like this hyper immersive, hyper realistic.
Now here's something I have to say. I wonder if you'll see a kind of division between hyper-immersive games and games that are designed to just fry your attention span as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, trying to imagine. I guess Fortnite is already this.
I hate
where
Fortnite
it
for that
has
reason.
all it. I never played it. I just read about it occasionally to see what the kids are up to, and it's like, oh, the game keeps adding different subgenres. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
And different, like, how busy it is with character skins and...
Minecraft does shit like that.
Yeah.
Roblox. It's basically any, like, highly open platform, sandbox-esque environment is just going to be exploited fully. And that's... especially if they're designed to be that way, then, yeah, it's just going to be that way.
It's curious that a shooter hasn't previously said, let's throw every single genre into it. Maybe the technology just wasn't there for routine rebuilds. Or seasonal rebuilds.
I mean, if you look at like what Call of Duty's doing, it's basically that. They have their battle royale, they have their story campaign, they have their like team deathmatch style.
They have their Nicki Minaj skin.
They have third person now. They have like zombies, which is like horror. They have like heavily story narrative driven shit, almost borderline RPG elements now. Like Call of Duty is literally becoming like one of those
borderline RPG elements.
Yeah.
Do you mean EXP and like stat ups?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you meant with the single player campaign. If it, I'm sure it's a very linear story.
I mean, I'm sure they do too, but
yeah,
like,
but sorry, go on.
No, they still now. I wouldn't be surprised if you played a modern Call of Duty campaign and there's dialogue options in certain cutscenes. You know, like
probably very limited though. It's interesting shooters having EXP. I understand why it's part of the Skinner box mechanic. I really don't like that. Very standard bland take, but
yeah, I mean, I think it's to a certain extent
it's to keep you involved and just show off like the amount of time you spend on it, whatever.
I think when it comes to shooters, like the XP shooter things, like when, like for example, the online mode usually has that XP thing. After a certain level, like it's supposed to stop affecting your performance.
Yeah,
like after you get to like past like level 40 or level 100,
sure,
like it's supposed to stop. Everything else after that is just a matter of you as a player. Like now that you've unlocked everything, like what combination can you use that works best for you to gain an edge?
Sure.
That's what it's supposed to be. That's why they call it endgame. Endgame is endgame. You know, where you have everything now. It's like how much better can you use it? Compared to everyone else.
I miss the simplicity of like 90s and aughts FPSs.
Well,
you just have your weapons right from the start there.
I mean, all right. For example, like From Software makes that kind of game. Like From Software makes the kind of game where it's like, yes, you know, there's so many levels of growth. There's so many different avenues of like leveling up and builds and all that shit. But if you're truly skilled, you can literally play that game without using any XP expenditure.
Yeah.
Without getting hit once, using pure technique and just fucking everything up. And they literally have like let's play playthroughs of showing just
Yes.
that. So that's a real game like what you described, where it's like, yes, there's a lot of experience points, grinding involved, but if you're good enough, you don't have to do any of that. You could,
Sure.
you could literally just...
I'm just saying I want FPSs that are like Unreal Arena, which I know exists.
Unreal Arena. Do you remember games like Quake?
Yes, exactly, like
Yeah.
Quake. I feel like something's lost in FPSs,
Well-
but I don't know. I never really played them, so I don't know. I'm just
Quake is a funny game because the thing about Quake is the very first Quake went through like a very developmental hell phase, I think.
Yeah, I think so. It did.
Because
And
at
a
the
lot
time,
of it's
like-
with transitioning from Doom, from like sprites.
Like
from,
they knew Doom worked, but what they didn't know is like they knew one game as a first-person shooter worked, but they didn't know how to turn that into like other
a
games.
fully 3D environment like that.
Yeah.
Not pseudo or 2.5, whatever. Like,
And another problem with Quake was that, all right, so they had Quake is known the campaign to have like 4 different levels or something like
Yeah.
that, 4 or a secret 5th level, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah.
But each of those 4 levels was made by like basically 4 different developers.
Yeah.
So that's why if you play through like the original Quake campaign, apparently like each level or each campaign is so drastically different.
Yeah.
You literally feel like you're playing 4 different games. You're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
That's why it's like it was crazy. Honestly, like I should know this stuff. The only reason why I know this is because like I watch a lot of YouTube videos, you know. like,
Yeah.
So I get this, like I get a lot of this knowledge basically secondhand. But I see the video. Examples.
Yeah, it's in the ether.
But you like the Unreal Engine? I mean,
Nah, I don't know. I just, part of it's nostalgia, and I can make up arguments for why it's correct. I guess I can, but does feel like something's lost. Though I guess it's kind of a natural culmination. Its current high stimulus environment.
yeah. You know what? With all this like generative technology that could
Yeah.
like, basically just create media at the flip of a finger, I think what it can never truly fake, and this is where we start to sit and wonder. It's like, what makes all this shit actually good?
Right.
The games we play, the shows we watch, the movies we see, all this shit, the comics we look at. Like, what is the core of it? Like, what is the actual common thread that makes the good stuff good? And I think there's like it's on a very like soul, like visceral level, but the closest
Yeah.
like tangible level, the deepest tangible level is the writing.
Yeah.
I think at the core of all good media is good writing.
Good writing, good craftsmanship, and like assembling.
But it has to start
you
with
could
the
say
writing.
things. Yeah, you could with a video game. You could extend it to things like level design being a comparable or similar skill.
But you
Good
still have
writing.
to write that out. in
Yeah,
a
you
way.
do. Yeah,
Like, you
no,
have
that's
to like
true.
draft it out.
Yeah.
In some form. So it's like I think writing is a fundamental skill because it's the most direct way to structure your ideas.
Oh, of course,
in a
yeah.
communicatable way. So I think like no
No
matter
matter the programming language it's written in.
basically, yeah, you got to have an innate sense for syntax, which is so deep, it's deeper than letters. Like where you could like, words like English, like in a conventional language, like you said, like
Yeah.
you look at a programming language and you see the poetry in it. Like I could hear the music in this, like,
Yeah.
I mean, I could do that with like HTML files. Like
Yeah.
if I just see something that's like extremely well made, like just for a web page, I'm like, holy shit. Like this
Yeah.
is like incredibly.
The
Yeah.
late 80s or 80s through 90s and then aughts, really things were just changing so drastically. Late 80s, early 90s, there was so many leaps forward graphically.
Yeah.
Just like there were certain advancements in bits, early 3D, even something like 6 months prior to Doom coming out, or a few months prior, you see games that were top sellers and continue to be top sellers, and they were just like flat, like almost ASCII level tile sets, or like tiny little 8-bit pixel art.
Yeah. And the way they would process it through
Yeah.
cartridges had this weird phase where they had to like access like within these chipsets, like they only had like limited avenues of like memory processing and stuff. So you had to like,
Yeah.
it was crazy shit. Again, I shouldn't know this, but I only know this because of watching like YouTube videos on Game Boy cartridges, and it was just crazy. It's actually really deep.
It was a really hugely advanced a time of great advancement, and now it feels like a lot of technology in video games has stagnated or plateaued.
All right.
You know what's interesting? Here's something I think is interesting. I'm sure there's technical reasons for why it can't be done, and probably also just market reasons. I would have expected there to be a FPS out by now that allowed hundreds of people on both sides.
They do, I think. I mean, it's not good.
It caps out at like 50 versus 50 games, probably because it's hard to get people to join your games. Join matches.
I think
but like, what is it? Like Hell Let Loose, I think, the World War II.
Yeah, they did it in that meta way, where it's like they just like kind of do branched off like campaigns.
No, but well, I mean, like a multiplayer game with hundreds of people playing.
Yeah, like a
once.
single match at one time.
And I'm sure people drop. Another factor probably is just that people would drop in and out so quickly, and it's hard to get people to coordinate. Like, as
Eve
an
is
actual,
like that though.
Yeah, Eve
is one of those games where in one given battle you would have literally like 10,000 ships all in.
I'm sure they all have sharding or whatever on the server. That's not technically running all at the same time at the same place, but
there is a specific kind of lag, and
the nature of Eve doesn't require as much fast twitch muscle reflex, much muscle fiber as you'd get in an FPS. You can't have 100 people or 200 people, I guess, all running around. Hey, there's probably issues with interacting, communicating between the computers.
But as for what you were talking about, like how animations changed, like going from like, it's like you were given a grid of pixels and you're able to manipulate those pixels to create 2D static images and then add movement to it. And then like you could manipulate the shading once you're given color to create a more three-dimensional effect, right? But then I think it got even more meta, where you gain enough processing and you gain processing power and you gain enough pixels to be able to create virtual planes, like a virtual cameraman, basically. From that perspective. And you're able to like look at it
and all those dimensions, having a Z axis,
and it generates it real time as you spin. As you view it from those different angles. So I think like that's a big like thing where you were given that meta ability to like pixels looking at pixels at that point, you know. And that kind of evolves animation by a lot, I think. Yeah. But also, like, what's after that? Like, when you say we're stagnating, it's like, yeah, you're right, because you could only go so far looking at a two-dimensional screen and all the ways
that's true. Yeah, and like another factor is like development time and costs.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, do PS5 games look really that much better than PS4?
So what's the next step? I mean, every video game developer will tell you, like modern game developer, it's like honestly, what our goal is, you know, if we're talking about pushing the envelope with like this kind of technology, what we really want to see next is we want to see games that you could smell, you know, what you're experiencing in the game, to be able to touch, you know, what you experience in the game, to be able to taste something in the game that you could taste in real life, or like that you could taste within your senses or your own sensory
How
perception.
Interesting is it though, that really?
Well, it depends.
Is sight and sound good enough or preferable enough?
It depends how you do it. So if you do it in like there's really inefficient ways to do it, which is like to make like a headset that squirts out fumes.
Yeah.
No, like that's not gonna work. What you really what you're talking about is you got to get to the root. You got to have something that affects your brain directly, that stimulates your brain directly in a specific way, where it's like because. Remember, like your brain isn't in contact with all these things. Your brain is just processing, you know, your physical body. You could like directly trick your brain in a state where it's like you're not, you know, your brain's not saying you're here. Your brain's saying you're there, and your brain is saying you're tasting this and you're tasting that and you're feeling this, you're feeling that. I think that's the way to do it. You're not going to be able to do it in this material like sense where it's like, oh, that's the next level of immersion where we're going to like create this thing that sticks something in your mouth when you eat something in the game. No, it's not gonna fucking work. Like if you could say like put on something on that covers the whole like, you know, head area while you sleep or go into a state of stasis while your brain is being stimulated in a way where it's generating this experience for you, then that would probably be the next way to do it. You know, through like sound stimulus, maybe light, you know, whatever.
Yeah, some holodeck shit.
Yeah.
How interested do you think a lot of people would be in that?
I mean, they're already developing this. In fact,
I
wouldn't be
wonder how big
surprised-
the market would be. I wonder if video games almost cap out primarily, at least for a long time, as a visual and auditory experience.
Well, this is where it could borderline on conspiracy theory. So you could argue it's like, yeah, this would
Yeah.
take highly advanced technology, you know, like, or maybe not. You know, what if there was a more esoteric? Or,
How many people would want this? Is what I'm getting at.
You mean to be able to go full immersion into like a different?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you look at like the amount of people that are just casually interested in astral projection as is and subjects
Right.
like that, or lucid dreaming,
I feel
what's
like
the difference? That's it. Everyone's interested in this shit,
Right.
Like basically, you know, everyone's interested in.
I
Lucid
wonder
dreaming.
if I would play, because when I know it's very different, but when I tried on a VR headset, I did not. I thought this is a cool novelty, but I do not want to play a video game like this.
No, I think the
I expect almost the same thing with other senses.
I think the VR headset thing is a dud. I don't
Yeah.
think that's gonna. I think first of all, like the full VR headset thing, I don't think that's gonna really work.
Yeah.
Ever. What I do think is gonna work is augmented reality (AR). I think it's like where you just put on like regular, maybe fashionable like Ray-Bans, and you know they don't look like a headset. They just look like a regular pair of glasses. And once you put them on, you see, you know, everything with like a layer of like, you know, a digital interface over it, you know, where it's like if I look at a cup of coffee with these glasses on, it doesn't just you know, I'm also
I have a heads-up display, and it's constantly playing TikTok videos while I'm doing everything else in my life. That seems believable to me.
or it's like, you know, people could really fuck around with it. It's like, oh, you know, like I created this algorithm that interfaces with these glasses, and basically it's a custom app where I could look at any guy, and it creates this like index ratio, and it draws from all these databases instantaneously to guess like a very highly accurate estimation of your dick size. You know, like shit like that. Like I could imagine that, which would be very funny. Like if
That'd be fun. Seems like a nice anodyne use for it. I feel like, just imagine walking around and your vision's just cluttered with like with the equivalent of pop-up ads.
Yeah, but that's if you choose to wear the glasses.
Yeah.
I mean, it would get really dicey when it gets to like, all right, you don't even need glasses, you can just wear contacts that does this. Oh, you don't even need to wear the contacts, you just get eyeballs that are better. You know, it's like, no, I would rather keep it with the glasses.
Yeah, I think most people would. We've had this discussion before
Like, how deep
with
would you go with-
cybernetics, where I've said to you, unless someone actually has an injury, there's very little reason to replace something when you can just put something over your actual body.
Yeah, like people in you know, like a lot of fans of Cyberpunk 2077, I feel like didn't get deep enough into the lore to realize why so many people got cybernetic parts in the first place. It's because within the lore of that universe, there was like a Great World War III that just happened before like the events of the game or the tabletop game, and that's where like millions and millions and
People
millions
are maimed or
yeah.
disabled.
So created a huge demand and a huge market for like cybernetic parts. And
Yeah.
you're right, which is like what just goes back to what we're saying now. It's like, yeah, most people probably wouldn't fucking swap out their eyeballs, but they would probably.
That would be an interesting enough depiction, with people always having like partial mech frames or body frames on them, or smart glasses. I mean, this is pretty close to what we already have with smartphones.
Well, the question is like, if it was really viable technology, then you would know that like there would be like a crack special team unit, like special forces unit, super
Using
secret,
it, that's true, and you
that-
don't, and no, you know, it's
They
not
all
viable.
have like cybernetic parts like all over their body and shit.
They probably would. I get the feeling that they would just have a limit, like, I don't know, really good heads-up display, a few things.
They're able to communicate like technologically, like,
Yeah.
telepathic, you know.
I'm imagining more of a sneaking suit clad operative rather than a burly cyborg.
Yeah, they have like, what is it, like skeleton earpieces, and like they have all sorts of crazy technology, like insane, like basically like that's what freaks me out. Like, you know, where I could imagine, you know, like it is plausible to imagine in 15 years time we could probably do this crazy shit. But then, like, deep down in my heart, I'm like, you know, they probably have that already. Like,
Well,
you know?
what's the craziest shit we have right now? Drones. As far as military technology goes.
I mean, as far as military technology we know of, like if we want to stretch to the furthest.
Well, things that are in widespread use and production and being used in battlefields around the world. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, that's all conventional stuff, you know. Like that's just like it's just more or less like more like new of the old, like just new shit, new like more of the same old shit.
You don't see drones as a huge innovation?
Not really.
Why? Are you comparing them to air forces in general? What are you thinking?
Oh! I mean, like in terms of like the actual practical application
Yeah.
of drones. Yeah, no, I definitely think they're a game changer. I just mean like it hasn't changed anything enough to like make the human soldier obsolete.
No, it
Like,
doesn't.
that's
But
what-
it feels like it's on the level of the machine gun being introduced.
I get that. Yeah, it's just more effective at killing more dudes in the battlefield. What I'm looking for is like the true introduction of technology that's going to be like, all right, like what's the point? Like what are we even doing here? Like a lot of bombers, you know, you
Yeah.
hardly see bombers up in the air now because a lot of drones do the job of bombers, you know?
Yeah, and they do. It's very ignoble, but it is effective. Where they just drop. There are these chintzy, cheap little things dropping grenades. Big factor with drones is that they allow tiny nations to have an effective air force.
Yeah,
which
and
is
they
fascinating.
use an interface that's like a Game Boy. Pretty
Yeah,
much. Yeah, like a
no,
PSP.
it's an Xbox controller usually because also people have experience with it.
Yeah. And they got that little like the iPad fucking.
Yeah.
They just like controlling it. It's really funny. But yeah, if
Houthis having an air force now because of drones, all the stuff going on in Ukraine on both sides with the drone fleets, Russia using all these super cheap Iranian drones, like $25 drones to kill people.
damn, you might see this crazy new like sub-military industry where it's just like crack drone pilots who
Yeah.
specialize in taking
You
down
know what
drones.
else? You know what else is great about drone pilots? What's the big difference between a drone pilot and a fighter pilot?
I mean, they don't have to deal with the G's of being in a jet.
That's one. What's another big one?
They don't have to die.
Your best drone pilot's drone gets shot down, you just give him another one.
Yeah.
Your best fighter ace gets shot down, you lose a hugely talented person.
Yeah. I mean, I would argue though, like a true drone that can outperform like a jet still takes a lot of fucking technology.
No, true.
But it's
I
still
mean,
easier to produce, you know, if especially doesn't have the fact that it doesn't have to house like a human.
yeah, that's a huge change right there in air forces of not losing pilots, of being able to build smaller, more efficient machines that don't require humans in them.
I'm just thinking in terms of more small scale, but then it makes
Yeah.
you wonder. It's like you have these drones, for example, dropping
Yeah.
grenades on like,
Yeah.
you know, if I was Russia, I would literally just work on creating small drones that take down other drones like that. Like,
You know what they do a lot of? There's a lot of guys who are just doing skeet shooting.
yeah.
Guys with shotguns. Skeet shooters are now super talented, a super factor needed in armies.
Yeah, it
Which
makes
is
you wonder.
wild. Like, you're seeing guys with just shotguns and birdshot taking down drones.
It makes you wonder how high these Ukrainian drones are actually flying to make these, so where these Russian soldiers aren't literally just thinking to look up and say, "Oh, there that fucker is."
No, they're pretty close to the ground on both accounts. The guys on the ground can see them and can tell they're going to die, which is really eerie too.
It doesn't
watching
even
the-
kill them
the
right
kill
away. It just
cam.
maims
Yeah.
them. So first, what it does, they drop the grenades.
Yeah.
And it maims them, like they'll lose a leg or whatever, and then they get send a squad of Ukrainian soldiers to like finish them off.
Yeah. Hold on, be right back. Sorry, man.
Oh, it's all good. I was just talking about how like every guest on this podcast has their
Yes.
own. I was talking about how every guest on the podcast has their own quirk. Your quirk is you're the guest that likes to take like mid-episode pauses.
That's true. I am. I know. I always.
No, but every guest has their own thing. Like certain guests obsess about like specific things. There's one that doesn't like being on camera. There's guests that do like being on camera. It's just like I said. It's an interesting mix. There's some guests that are like that always show up late. There's some guests that show up early. You know, like
Some guests only show up in your apartment.
exactly. So yeah, it's
Excuse me.
it's definitely an interesting mix. Hold on, let me see what time we're at.
Oh. What time are we at?
Okay, we still have a few minutes left.
Okay.
Okay, what did we cover? Did we cover all right, you know what? Let's talk about journaling.
about journaling. Okay.
Yeah, journaling. Do you journal?
Barely. I've been trying to. I can write some things down, just being neurotic self notes, but is it helpful? I guess a little bit.
All right. So do you have a journal?
Not a physical one.
All right. So if you ever got a journal, I'm going to give you a very simple framework for journaling.
Yeah,
Right?
because you write all your journals by hand.
You don't have to, but
Yeah.
I do. I mean, it helps. But I'll give you a simple one.
Yes.
Like, so you don't have to write it by hand. You can, which I like doing, but you don't have to. But so you keep a journal, and every entry you break it up into 4 parts. The first part is current events, like what's going on, what's happening.
Yeah.
The second part is how you feel physically, like what's going on with your body, your physical sensations, like how you've been feeling, like how your your gut is, how your heart is,
Yeah.
how your back is, whatever. Then the third section is how you're feeling mental, like your mental state, like what are
Yes.
your thought patterns, your thought process. Reflect on your thoughts that you've been having, like that you've been thinking, right?
Yeah.
And the fourth section, the last one, is how you're feeling emotionally. It's your emotional state. You reflect on your emotional state, like what you're going through emotionally. Do you feel sad? Do you feel happy? Do you feel good? Do you feel gratitude? Do you feel warmth? Do you feel loved? Like whatever. So
Right.
so every journal entry, just break it up into those 4 pieces.
That's actually a very interesting rule. That is worth trying.
It's not a rule. I'm just saying it's
guideline.
it's a basic, but if you stick to that,
Yeah.
like before you know it, you're gonna be doing this every day. Like every morning, you're just gonna it's because it's very easy to do. You're not stuck there. It's like, what the fuck do I write about? It's
You
like, no,
just detail these things. You move on. You can look back at it later and think about it and say,
and like I was asked recently, like where I came,
Yeah.
like where I just thought it was like the reason why I do that is because it's the most basic thing to me. It's like mind, body, and soul, and current events. So it's like the current events is the first part. It's like what's
Right.
going on. Then the second one is your body. It's like how I feel physically. And then the next one is the mind, like your
Yeah.
thought process. And the last one is your soul, is how you feel emotionally.
yeah.
So yeah, if you're gonna journal, that's a good framework. Because a lot of people are told to journal, like you should start journaling,
Yeah.
and it's like, all right, you get a journal, and you're like, all right, what the fuck do I write? Like, what the fuck? Where the fuck do I even start? And this is what I'm giving you. I'm giving you the gift of a framework. You could change it, you could alter it, you could add to it, you could subtract to it, but this is how you should think of it. Like you shouldn't just you're right, you shouldn't just start randomly. I mean, you could.
Yeah.
There's techniques for that. It's called like morning pages, where you just write completely free form. But usually, I don't know, it's different. This is it's a more of a meditative, reflective framework where you could just see different angles of yourself as in your being. So yeah, you should try it. You should pick up on it.
That's a good idea, actually. Let me do that. That'd be a good project, a good habit to try. Or
I mean, I've already someone else.
before, yeah.
I do this, and someone else I've told, I didn't even tell them to do this. I just told them this is how I do it. They started doing it, and they said it was
Yeah.
pretty good. So now I'm sharing it with you. It works for me.
Yeah.
It's almost like, before journaling, like a regular journal, I kept a commonplace notebook,
Yeah.
and I used to write in that thing a lot, but ever since I started regular journaling, just given that basic framework, that I started writing in my journal a lot more than the commonplace notebook. The commonplace notebook, I think I write in more of when I come across really novel ideas,
Yeah.
and when I'm reading books. I'm like, oh, that's a pretty good
I was
bit.
never a note taker because I always had such good memory.
Yo,
But my memory's not as good as it used to be. And frankly, it would always be a lot better if I just kept notes.
no, to me, note taking. The reason why note taking is great for me. I don't use it to remember things. I use it to learn new things.
Yes.
It becomes so much easier. You ever take an online course before in anything? Never.
No, we talked about this before. I know that just writing it down can help with.
Yeah, you're right. Writing it down can just help, but it's different when it's yes, writing it down can help you remember it, but compared to if you could get the benefits of writing it down, but being able to use a specific app or software to actually put it in a structured way, it's amazing.
That makes sense.
I've recently learned how to do it with Obsidian, and it's it can't be understated how powerful that shit is.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's because I was leveraging it to use something, to learn something I already kind of vaguely knew, like music, a music theory course. But
Yeah.
I mean, it was insane. I mean, I still have the vault. I still have the notes. It's good just for recording daily thoughts and linking it. And I got to show you the app. It's pretty crazy.
Yes.
So yeah, there's that. So journaling, I highly recommend journaling as a personal practice for everyone, because after doing it, I really feel like if you don't journal, it's almost like you're flying blind.
Yeah.
Throughout reality,
Interesting. That does a lot to guide or stabilize you.
Yeah.
There's all the more reason to try and see what effects it has.
I think it's just a tool for like raising your consciousness. Like, you become you're more aware of your patterns. That's really all you're doing. Not to judge, not for the sake of judging, literally just to be aware of what your patterns are. In all ways, what your physical patterns are, what your mental patterns are.
Quickly flip through it, see day by day, month by month.
Yeah.
What you're doing. I
mean, I was recently talking to a person, and like it was kind of crazy where I got to a point where I was like being able to tell them honestly, like I think about you every day, and I know this for a fact because I journaled
about,
and it's like and you get mentioned like day by day. It's like I know I think about you every fucking day. So that's, and it's one of those things where it's like I wouldn't have known that if I wasn't journaling. If I wouldn't have been able to recognize that if I didn't journal. I would have just like
also leaving a journal means that if you die, people can discover it and see your notes and pick up clues as to where you had
that's the bad part.
Key card.
That's where you got to like make a deal with your friend. It's kind of like a delete my hard drive kind of deal. Like,
yeah,
it's like don't look in it, just fucking burn it, man. Like, yeah. I mean, I guess like there's different ways to go about it.
You could gather statistics on your own physical, mental, and spiritual states.
I mean, you could keep like a really personal one, and if you really wanted to, that's the one you keep secret, and then you could create a more watered down, abridged version,
or one that's like commenting. You would be interesting is like you meet someone, you write some notes, you make predictions about them, see how things turn out. Maybe not with a person. A person you probably should be making predictions about, just to describe someone you've met. But maybe world events, make predictions about how you think they're going to unfold. And then go back and look at them.
Yeah, that
would be interesting.
That's one way to do it. I mean, you wouldn't. I mean, so okay. For example, you just brought up a really good.
That would be keeping a journal, but something not keeping both a personal journal and a journal about things that aren't personal.
Okay, so you just brought up a really good point. Now, from that perspective, yeah, you're right. That's already very powerful. Now, imagine being a person who believes in like every choice you make creates a parallel universe, a parallel reality, a parallel timeline that takes you down a different timeline, which takes you to a different version of yourself. Let's say you believe in that, which, I mean, let's be real. A lot of people fucking would, like a lot of rational minded people would have a reason to believe that's the case. Yeah. Every choice you make creates an alternate timeline.
Yeah.
So imagine how powerful that is when you're a person who journals and you're conscious of like your own current events, your own physical states, your own mental state, and your own emotional state, which is like every state, every sense of your being. And you're conscious of it, and you're conscious of your own patterns, you're conscious of your own decision making and all that stuff. Imagine you become more godlike than anything on a metaphysical level, not on a material immediate level, like an observable level, but on a metaphysical level, you become way more of a master of your fate. I mean, just because you're experiencing one parallel reality doesn't mean the other ones don't exist. It's just your consciousness is tuned to the frequency of that one because of your conscious decision making, your conscious state, your mental state, your emotional state, and your physical state, all aligning towards that timeline.
Yeah.
So from what you described, predicting whatever, you could look at it that way, but you could also look at it as like you're literally creating a precedent for specific timelines to happen, and you're creating more of a likely outcome if things are vibrating at that frequency.
Right.
So yeah, it gets even crazier. Like this is why journaling is also like a fucking spiritual habit. It's crazy shit. So it's true. Like where if you're told like if you're not journaling, you're not even playing the game. Like I get it. It's kind of true. It's almost like why wasn't I doing it? But then I realized it's because no one was teaching any of us how to do it, really. Because that would involve like being made to be aware of like these different elements of self and reflecting on that. Meanwhile, the people teaching us aren't even able to do that these days.
Yes.
For themselves,
People are Yeah, I was gonna say spiritual, a bunch of awakenings, but also a lot of people are very detached.
Yeah. I mean, it's also like it's how much faith do you have in yourself ultimately?
Yeah.
Because that's really where all the compromises come in, right? Where it's like when you make bad decisions, it's you make them because you're in compromise of something. It's like, oh, what if I'm not able to do this? I'm scared. You know what? I'll make this little compromise so I don't have to worry about it as much. Meanwhile, you're sacrificing some integrity in another area. It's being able to just be like, you know what? I'm going to put it all on the line. If I'm wrong, I fucking die. Oh well. But at least I did it all and put all my faith in this. You know, and
Yes.
and if it works, it works. You know, if it doesn't, it doesn't. Oh well. I mean, and you know, more often than not, what people don't realize is that like your failures are a lot more forgiving than you think they are in your head. You might as well just go for it, you know?
Yeah, it's true.
Get your failures out of the way, if anything, so you can learn from it first. Instead of like kicking it down the road until you just either A, never make any decisions and you go nowhere, or B, you make such a big, like huge, gigantic orgasmo fuck up, you know, like you're just edging your fuck up so much where it just comes out as a huge fuck up splooge, you know?
Yeah.
You don't want that. you want to get your little fuck ups out of the way.
Yeah, an organized time release of fuck ups.
Yeah, learn how to edge yourself. If anything, learn how to do fuck ups hands free, you know, like hands free fuck ups. I'm not even no hands.
Anyway.
Yeah, we just hit the hour mark, so we should give it like a couple more minutes just to tie it up, like aftercare, you know?
Yeah.
Like here, take a towel.
Sure thing.
This is why if you're a bachelor, you have to keep a little heated thing where you keep warm towels.
Yeah, I suppose. I don't know. If you're trying to turn your bachelor pad into a bathhouse.
Yo, I'm thinking about doing a trip to Japan sometime soon. Would you travel with me?
Yeah, I would like to. Yeah.
Yeah. The only problem is for me is my cat. Like I gotta figure out if I would take my cat with me traveling. I don't want to.
No, you'd probably better off putting her with the cat sitter. Him with the cat sitter.
Yeah.
I was German for a second there.
Yeah. Fuck. Oh yeah. Fucking. I don't know. Like I could just sit here and like reflect on like the politics of the world, but I really don't fucking want to.
I don't know. I mean, military. I'm tired of culture war stuff, but I'm mostly interested still in military and geopolitics. What about you? Or that also kind of burned on?
Yeah, I've definitely been a little burnt on geopolitics as well, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's still interesting enough where I could definitely see it like directly affects me. But after COVID, it's like, dude, I'm just
Yeah, COVID was a real exhaustion point. I was going to talk about the terrorist attack in Russia.
I mean, I don't know enough about it.
Yeah,
it's
I don't either. It just happened today. Speaking of journaling, 40 dead thus far, 100 some wounded.
Yeah, rest in peace those poor Russian people. At a theater, no less.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess anything that happens, you get into the game of predicting or speculating on who did it.
They were trying to attack the bourgeoisie.
Yeah, or either that. Supposedly it was an ISIS splinter group, which sounds suspect, in Khorasan, which isn't a Star Wars planet. I guess it, of course, again, I don't know. But yeah, you're right. Just not enough info to comment on. Very tacky to do so.
I saw.
It does look like footage of it does look like the opening of Tenet.
Yo, I saw this really fucked meme. It was
What?
like, "Oh, Dune is so cool. I wish Islam was real." And then someone was like, real Islam has never been tried.
Yeah. Well, arguably, yeah. But there's a lot of other things in life now that are video game like.
Like dating.
Yes, like dating, which we were talking about before we started this episode. About it's been overtly said, this is well-trod ground, about how swiping is like a game, about how the strategies, the ways you talk to people trying to maximize your success or work towards your goals are way less like normal relationship pursuit and way more like playing a game.
Facebook is
There's
kind
a
of
meta to dating apps.
Yeah, Facebook has been like kind of like a meta dating app.
Yeah. Frankly, the social media that functions as internet blood sports is a kind of PvP game.
Yeah.
Twitter is a open PvP zone. Facebook was for a long time. Now it's pretty dead. Now Facebook is filled with AI-generated content that boomers are just sincerely responding to.
Yeah. I think it's like no matter where you go, it's just people are just gonna be fucking people. You know, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, whether it's anywhere, Discord, like it's just gonna be fucking people.
Yeah.
So it's in fact it's kind of hard to find actual weirdos these days.
Yeah, that's true. The internet in general, there's more people online than ever before.
Yeah.
But all the communities are like, you don't have those fun weirdo insular communities anymore.
No.
Truly weird people, I don't know. You just, where did they go? Did they grow up? Did they die?
I think a lot of them
died, or the people grew up and like developed a more normal life. I think a lot of people moved on from being deranged posters because they just have something more important or more like fun or something more significant going on.
Yeah, they just re-rolled their character.
They re-rolled their character into a husband.
Yeah, you're right. That did happen a lot. I actually did see that firsthand where people just
Which is good. I'm glad for them. Happy for them.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, if anything. You can't expect people to stay static.
And you don't seem to, Zoomers don't seem to have, maybe they do, I don't know about, they don't seem to have like the same forum warrior culture because they don't have bulletin boards. They have TikTok more than anything.
Oh my god, TikTok. Do you agree it should be banned?
I don't know what that's going to do.
I don't like
I'm skeptical. Like, Chinese are incredibly bad at propaganda. The Chinese are not the Soviets. They have no ability to influence things in a way. They can definitely weight the algorithm a bunch of ways, but that's all they can do. They can't like create or spread socially damaging material. They have an inability to exert cultural influence on the countries directly next to them. It's a tremendous failure of Chinese propaganda that Vietnam prefers America to China. And like China has this huge internal market, and they make like movies and music and video games for their own internal market, which I guess they like. But Americans don't go out and watch Wolf Warrior.
Yeah, Chinese shit sucks. Their cars suck.
Yeah, everything sucks. I mean, I guess Chinese like Chinese shit, and that's the extent of it. No one else likes like
laptops.
Like Korea and Japan are smaller in population, smaller in landmass, huge global influence. China's global influence is they have some big successful startups and tech companies, not just shipping cheap shit, but they don't have the impact that they have. Like culturally, they're really punched below their weight.
Yeah, it's weird though because like you think of iPhones and shit, which isn't
made
Chinese,
in China,
but it's made in China.
And they have tech startups like Tencent. I think is one of the biggest companies in the world. They have tech startups that are huge, not as good as American ones, but they can do their own thing, and they sometimes are effective competitors.
It's
their fast fashion shit is, I mean, a lot of stuff on Amazon now is just like upsold shit from Temu or Shine.
It's all garbage.
It's all garbage. So you might as well go through their company originally if you're going to buy 10 shirts and see if one fits, and then send the rest back or just keep them.
Which makes you wonder, like, what is Amazon even good for these days? I mean, what do I get from Amazon? I get like.
I think a lot of people do get a lot of common household goods and products, and they have routine shipments to their house from Amazon. But Amazon has gone so much worse. Google sucks now.
Yeah?
Yeah, like search results are awful. Google's search function is terrible.
All right, my question is this, right?
Yeah.
What did we expect, for example? It's not like where we could say, oh my god, like the all the plethora of products that we could get has just gotten so much worse in quality. The truth is, like, it wasn't 15 years ago. We weren't even able to get half this shit from the internet.
15 years ago? No, 10 years ago, you could get a lot of this stuff. And it was much better.
I mean, all right, like I could
15 years ago, Google worked.
Here's some examples I could think about. Like,
yeah.
Like we could go on the internet at any given time, on Amazon no less, and get like full-blown tactical gear. We could get like bows, we could get like knives, we could get spears, we could get tactical flashlights, we could get harnesses, we could get repelling gear, we could get like breaching gear, we could get lock picks, we could get like, you know, like we could probably get like everything we need for like a successful breaking and entering up, all off Amazon, like everything, like literally.
I bet they would immediately search the area for people who have ordered those things from Amazon.
But it's so funny that Amazon literally sells all of this shit.
Yeah.
And the internet and the wider internet outside of Amazon, I don't know if we were always able to do that, but like you said,
I think it was easier to get. Well,
15 years ago, it was hard. 10 years ago, we were probably able to get like Glocks and shit off the internet.
Yeah. I don't know. 15 years ago, you probably could order off of specialty stores. You just have to go to the website and like fiddle around with PayPal to do a digital order. But you could probably buy tactical gear off of tacticsgear.net or whatever it was called.
Fuck. Another thing was like, I mean, those
streaming video used to be only Netflix, which was a huge change. Remember when Netflix used to deliver DVDs? They had a much better selection.
Well, YouTube was always king. I mean,
yeah, like, YouTube is Google's biggest success. That they have YouTube, so that YouTube continues to be. That's something interesting. All these other sites and companies rise and fall. YouTube still is there. Nothing comes anywhere close to YouTube.
It's an institution.
It was dominant 15 years ago, and it's as dominant now.
You know what it is? It's like
kids don't use Facebook, but they will. Kids who are spending a lot of time on TikTok will still go to YouTube.
It's like Broadway.
Yeah.
It's because here's the thing about YouTube content. Like you could say like everybody consumes YouTube content.
Yeah.
But very few people out of like everybody. I mean, it's still a lot of people, but but only a few portion actually produce content for YouTube. Because and
there's a huge gap between content that's produced and content that's actually watched.
Exactly.
How many millions of 500 not K 500 view videos are there? I know a bunch end up getting deleted, but there's a shit ton of stuff out there that's barely ever watched.
I mean, if there is like a hierarchy of prestige in terms of where you post your like video content, your own like own original video content, YouTube is like the highest standard pretty much. Like there's no prestigious institution where you like push your fucking videos. No, it's YouTube. Yeah. YouTube is the place. YouTube is the highest, like the highest platform.
YouTube, and then I guess Twitch for streaming. But
no,
that's
but
so
YouTube,
much smaller. YouTube is so much bigger.
Yeah, YouTube is where it's at. YouTube is literally like the academy, the institution of video content.
It's just the theater. It's everything. I mean,
it's everything.
Like my dad. Another thing. YouTube is cross generational. It's so rarely available.
Yeah,
there aren't many boomers on Twitch or TikTok. Every single boomer is on YouTube. My dad's always telling me about YouTube videos he watches.
And the thing is, it's not even just for entertainment. It's also for
educational. And he's always telling me like, oh, I fixed my van today because I brought my tablet and I just followed a YouTube tutorial on replacing a headlight in my van.
So one might even say YouTube is actually making the world a better place. YouTube is actually making humanity better. It's evolving
Yes.
I mean, what beats that? I mean, things like TikTok. Fuck no. I think TikTok is like a warped, way of video consumption where it's making us worse. Whereas YouTube seems. I mean, YouTube can make us worse a lot of ways, but at least it leaves enough avenues to make us better.
My one complaint. I like YouTube. I wish there was more content that was just in text form or with like graphic text and like photos.
Oh, there's Reddit.
Yeah, that's the weird thing is Reddit has replaced every other specialty forum.
Reddit just went public.
Yeah. I think it has a benefit. It has some alpha there because A, it's a huge porn site. B, Reddit back pages too, I guess, effectively. C, Reddit is also the only really surviving message board.
Yeah.
Like, it used to be you would Google a subject matter and you would find, like, the biggest forum on that subject matter. All those have closed down or died or fallen apart due to drama. Instead of, like, looking up, I don't know, the menswear message board, the biggest one in the country, you end up going on our menswear.
Yeah,
which is unfortunate because I liked having devoted boards for those things. and personalities, and the nature of Reddit silences a lot of, like, you don't have, admittedly, there's just such a high risk of spamming, but all those devoted communities would have some, like, various eccentric rogue figures or personalities who are like, ugh, I hate this guy's. This guy has this dumbass radical take on fly fishing, and he's always trolling on the Fish and Game message board.
Yeah.
But I love the guy. What a character.
I think like where the hardcore text slingers,
Yeah.
they all retreated to Discord.
Yeah,
Discord
I
is
don't
like-
like Discord. Discord is like, I don't, because it's like, you want to find something, you join a Discord chat for it, you have to use a search function, which isn't very robust. I have to scroll, like, people are in conversations about, like, the subject matter. They're not, like, making long posts where they were, like, articulating all their points, pulling up data. Instead, they're just, like, freestyling, just spitting out statements or details or speculation or having conversation with someone else, which is nice, but, like, I don't know. If I'm playing a video game and I want to see people break down, like, the average, I don't know, damage of a weapon or, like, special effects, whatever, I don't know. Previously, one guy would make, like, a big comparison forum post.
Yeah.
Instead, I searched the Discord, and there's a bunch of guys going back and forth, not detailing all the info. They're just saying, like, oh, this is why I like X, or information is transmitted far worse through Discord than it is through older means of the internet.
That's true.
That's what I'm trying to get at, is that, it's much easier to read long, formal statements by different guys, even if they're going back and forth and arguing, compared to seeing chat logs.
Yeah, it's more like AOL, I guess.
It is.
True. That's true. The message forums, I guess it's... I mean, all right, so the thing about those long form, like, text posts, what those evolved into were, like, those videos on YouTube where it's like, hey, I'm just I'm back at you guys with another YouTube video.
Yeah, those have so much filler.
I'm just responding to such and such's last video, who is referencing my video and his video, and he stated this, and I just want to clear up that this is how I actually feel about it.
Yeah, this is a far less efficient way of transferring information.
But this is what they do now.
I know it's what they do now. I'm once again whining because I'm old. I don't like that. I don't think it's just not as good at transmitting information quickly.
Yeah, probably you're right. It requires more, like...
Also, it's as opposed to having to hit back, like, go back 15 seconds, and listen carefully. I can just, with my eyes, look up and down on a paragraph or use Control F to find the keyword I'm looking for.
Yeah. Well, I guess what we always need is we always need people who are willing to write. We need writers.
Yeah, that's true. And it's becoming a skill set that's less and less people have.
I don't know. I would like to think people are writing more. I would hope that more people write. Even though I make fun of people who write all the time, I'm like, I hope people keep writing.
Yeah.
I like to write. I'm not a writer by any means, but I still love to write. I fucking love writing. Writing's like one of my I would say it's
one of your hobbies.
Probably one of my biggest hobbies. Ever since that's how we all met. We all literally met.
That's true.
Through, like, writing online, like, stupid bullshit, but it's still writing. It's kind of powerful, And I always say, and I did say, like, all content starts with writing. So anyway, with that, we're about ready to wrap it up. I have to drive Carmen home. But thanks for joining us.
For this impromptu unannounced episode.
Hells yeah. Cheers.